Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay in the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Hi, hello. It is Josh Bowe, one of the many editors over at MavsMoneyball.com, coming to you with another edition of Mavs Moneyball After Dark. This time, a 112-108 loss to the Memphis Grizzlies. A pretty disappointing loss, all things considered, although not the worst loss in the world, but we'll get into that. It's kind of a weird game that's making people feel a lot of different things. As you can tell by me starting off this podcast, I'm hosting no Kirk Henderson tonight. He is taking the night off. And of course, the night off for Kirk means he's still going to do his live show and he still watch the game. So if you're listening to this and you didn't catch the live show when it happened, it should be up in your feed sometime on Sunday. He got a weekend off. Basically, his wife and his kid went on a trip out of town. So I felt like it would be cruel for him to do his normal customary Mavs work. He needs to enjoy life while he can and not think about this Mavs game. That's for sure. It's a weird game because Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving were both ruled out with injuries before tip-off. Luka was ruled out yesterday on Friday, and then Kyrie was ruled out an hour or so before the game tipped off. So once Kyrie was ruled out, I mean, it was pretty much destined that this game was going to be a loss. Memphis doesn't have Ja Morant, obviously, as he's missing time for his personal issues that he's going through. But even without Ja, Memphis still has a very, very deep and talented roster with Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., Ty Jones, Xavier Tillman, David Roddy, who we'll talk about a lot more. They still have some talent to win games, especially against a team as shorthanded as the Mavericks. So honestly, this should have probably been a dominant win for the Grizzlies. And I think it goes to show some things about this Mavericks group. They do fight. I mean, the last time this team didn't have Luka or Kyrie was that Utah game right after the Kyrie trade when Kyrie wasn't with the team yet and Luka was still out with his heel injury, and the Mavericks won that game behind Josh Green and Jaden Hardy, and they almost did it again behind Josh Green and Jaden Hardy. Hardy had 22 points starting, playing 37 minutes. Green also started, played 34 minutes, scored 21 points. Green, obviously a little bit more efficient, had 10 rebounds, 4 assists. Hardy didn't do too much besides shooting and scoring. That's okay. That's kind of what they needed him, but he was a little inefficient, 9 of 21. Only had 3 turnovers, but it felt up at like 2 of them, at least 2, came in the final 2 minutes. Really killed the Mavericks. It was very strange, very low turnover game. Mavericks only had 11 turnovers, but then they had 3 turnovers in the final 2 minutes when the game was, when they were down by 1 point or nursing a 1-point lead. That was just really unfortunate timing there. Otherwise, things kind of went according to the script. Tim Hardaway Jr. keeps playing well. It's kind of disappointing that the Mavericks can't seem to take advantage of this little stretch he's on. Again, 23 points, 4 of 8 from 3. Dude is shooting 60% from 3 in the month of March. He's shooting over 60%, or at least close to 60% from 3 since the All-Star break ended. Dude has just been on fire. And yet the Mavericks have lost, most of the games they've played. They've only won 3 times since the All-Star break. And this is probably the best stretch Tim has played all season. So it's so weird when you think about how this team was playing earlier in the season before the All-Star break. And it was like when Tim shoots well, it was like an automatic win. When he shot poorly, it was a loss. Now he's shooting well and they still can't win. It's just a very weird season for the Mavericks. They're now 34-34. they're in the danger zone. This is getting for real. There's 14 games left. They're 34-34. The Golden State Warriors won on their home floor against the Milwaukee Bucks. That's why I kind of waited to record, because I wanted to see the outcome of that game. They're now 35-33 and solidly in sixth place by a game. The Mavericks are now, tied with Minnesota. Minnesota also 34-34, but Minnesota holds the tiebreaker. And now the Mavericks are, the Lakers in ninth are a half game behind, 33-34. They've won 3 straight, 7 out of their last 10. I think the Mavericks should be okay in terms of the play-in. They still have a decent enough lead. I mean, decent. It's a game and a half. The New Orleans Pelicans are 32-35, so 3 games below 500. Mavericks are at 500. So, those teams are scuffling a little bit. So I'm not too concerned about the Mavericks falling out of the play-in entirely, although that's still on the table. I mean, the Mavericks play a decent amount of road games. I mean, everything's on the table right now for this team. They could still climb out of the play-in. They could fall out of the play-in. They could fall to 9th or 10th, which would be really bad. That means they would have to win. If they fall to 10th, that means they'd have to win 2 road games to get into the playoffs. If they fall to 9th, they'll have to win at least 1 road game to get into the playoffs. And considering how this team is on the road, they're now 12-21 on the road. Not looking great. Luka Doncic's MRI came back pretty clean, but the Mavericks still held him out because he's just in that much discomfort. So we'll see, how quickly Luka comes back. The schedule is not really letting up for them. But, this is real now. Like, this is the kind of loss where it's like you look at all the circumstances. No Luka, no Kyrie. Team played hard, had 11-point lead in the fourth quarter and just kind of blew it because they just ran out of course. Hardy kind of started making the rookie mistakes that you expect from the 37th pick of the draft. It's not, you can't hold that against him too much. But at the same time, every loss now is just brutal. Like the Mavericks can't afford any losses, whether it's a good loss or a bad loss. Like there's no such thing as a good loss right now because the Mavericks are kind of fighting for their playoff lives. And unfortunately, they play Memphis again on Monday. Hopefully Luka and Kyrie will be back, or at least hopefully one of them. That's at home. But then after that, you play 3 straight on the road. San Antonio, hopefully that's a win. But then LA, Memphis again, then Golden State, Charlotte twice, which is nice for the Mavericks. They get Charlotte, Indiana 3 times in a row. Maybe that's going to be the 3-game stretch that kind of stabilizes their season, but they play a lot on the road. They got a 5-game road trip coming up at the end of March, beginning of April. And then they play the Kings. One of their last games of the season is against the Kings. Like, there's some easy games on the schedule, but with so many road games left, they've got 8 road games coming up before the season's over. That's tough. It's going to be tough for them. We haven't really talked too much about the game other than some numbers. I think the thing about this game is it was kind of the ultimate make or miss game.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Memphis shot the 3-ball pretty poorly in the first half, but they were living at the paint. Mavericks didn't shoot too well. Memphis had the lead. Third quarter, very beginning of the fourth, Mavericks were making almost all of their jumpers, it felt like. And the Grizzlies were missing just about all of theirs. In the third quarter, the Mavericks were 5 of 11 from 3. The Grizzlies were 2 of 7. And that was kind of the game. And the Mavericks shot a ton of jumpers. They only shot, they shot 23 shots at the rim. They shot 10 mid-range shots. They shot 43 3-pointers. So when you consider the 43 3-pointers and then the 10 mid-rangers, that's 53 jumpers out of their 85 shots. So they were very jump shooting heavy. And when they were making them, it was great. They got the 11-point lead. And then after that, Memphis made theirs. And the Mavericks seemingly missed most of theirs. And that's kind of the game. I know there's a little bit more to it than that, but really you could sum it up like that. Memphis finished with 54 points in the paint. Again, they were dominant. They shot 71% at the rim. Mavericks had no answer. The story of the game is Memphis rookie David Roddy scoring a career high 24 points on 10 of 13 shooting, 4 of 7 from 3, scored 17 of his 24 in the fourth quarter. I mean, he basically won them the game. It's a crazy kind of game from him because he hadn't scored in double figures since January 29th. He averaged 4.7 points per game in February and 4.8 points per game in March entering this game. So it seems crazy. You're like, oh, come on, just like the Mavs, you get bad luck. Some 11th man comes off the bench and does that to them. But Roddy is a solid player. He's a 23rd pick in the draft. He's very skillful. He's huge, 252 pounds at 6'5". The thing about him is, he made the 4 3-pointers, which is unfortunate considering he's not a big 3-point shooter. But, he scored, near the rim a lot. The Mavericks had no answer for him toward the basket. And you look at Reggie Bullock, you look at Josh Green, Jaden Hardy, even Justin Holiday, McKinley, none of these get Roddy caught the ball near the rim against those guys a couple times, and he just had post position sealing them off, and it was over. He just had layups. He just scored pretty easily. Maxi Kleba tried to do his best guarding the rim, and so did Dwight Powell. But Roddy is just so physical. The thing about it was it might be surprising from a sense that he just hasn't done that much this season, but in terms of his skill set, he was doing what he's good at, and he ran into a really good matchup for him. This Mavericks team without Luka has 0 size on the perimeter, and he took advantage. Mavericks did a decent job on Desmond Bane. I mean, he had 25 points on 18 shots, but he only scored 8 points in the second half, but he did make clutch ones. Made a clutch 3 at the end, clutch free throws in the fourth quarter. He's really good. We don't need to talk about Desmond Bane much, or I'm going to go crazy. We all know how much I adored him in the 2020 draft. This game could have probably been a blowout for Memphis if Memphis just shot normally from 3. They were 10 of 38, 26%. Jaren Jackson Jr., 0 of 5 from 3. That's not normal for him. He's a decent 3-point shooter. So the Mavericks played hard, but there's definitely some variance there. They got a little lucky on both ends of the floor, and then, of course, a little unlucky. I think the big thing, coming out of this game, looking at Mavs fans online, Christian Wood only played 15 minutes. He scored 14 points in those 15 minutes, 4 of 8 shooting, 6 of 6 from the foul line. No threes, 0 of 2. I don't know what else really to say about the Christian Wood situation. I'm just tired of getting mad at it. Coaching staff doesn't like him. That's it. Jason Kidd doesn't like him. We know this. That's how it is. They don't trust him to do certain things. They don't like him that much as a player. It's pretty obvious. They were trying to trade him for anything they could have gotten for the most part at the trade deadline. It's not hard to read the tea leaves. Jason Kidd can say what he wants to say in the post game about how the minutes are just tough with Powell and Kleba. But I mean, come on. That's not the reason. The reason isn't that the Mavericks big man depth is crowded. The reason is the Mavericks coaching staff prefers Powell and Kleba over Wood, and that's all there is to it. I know Dwight Powell's the whipping boy, and him having 4 points, 5 rebounds in 19 minutes is not going to do him any favors to the Mavs fan base, but the coaching staff trusts him to do the things that they want big men to do more than they trust Wood. And I don't know. It's over. It's hard to talk about. Maybe we have to talk about to keep holding the team accountable, I guess, but I just don't know what the point of that is. I'm just trying not to lose my mind over it because, losing your mind over this team, gets a really bad reaction, and I just don't want to deal with that. Christian Wood is not important enough for me to get really angry over. This isn't a guy he's a guy that's bounced around the league a lot. I kind of get it. His deficiencies are real, and there's some things that when I'm watching him annoy me for sure. And there's some things that just don't work, that you need out of a big man. And there's some things that are tough to play on the floor with a guy that just doesn't play that much defense at his position. But whatever. It's just, I don't want to get into it. It's just, we have to acknowledge it because it's pretty much the only lineup choice that looked kind of weird. Everyone else, they didn't play Theo, they didn't play Frank, which was great. Justin Holiday only played 13 minutes. I think they kind of ran the best rotation they could have ran tonight. So what are you going to do? The Christian Wood thing is just, it's over. Kind of spurning off the Christian Wood thing, just kind of want to acknowledge, like, it was kind of a contentious Mavs fan day online. I don't want to go specifically why. I kind of watched from the sidelines because I just don't want to tweet at anyone ever again anymore after what I've had to go through last summer. I don't know. Things are going to get pretty hostile. I feel like it. The team is 34-34. This is the team that went to the Western Conference Finals, and now they're struggling to make the playoffs with a young 24-year-old super duper star MVP candidate. That's really hard to do. It's really hard to do. You look at all these other teams that have really good young players, young superstars in the prime of their careers, and you just don't see this very often. Especially I know Luka's missed some games, but he's been relatively healthy. But you look at at Denver and Phoenix and Memphis, which has, Denver's got Jokic, Memphis has Ja, Phoenix has, Devin Booker, along with veteran stars. Those teams are all securely in the top four. You look at the Eastern Conference, the MVP candidates, Giannis, Tatum, Embiid, Donovan, those teams are all doing well. You don't see young MVP candidates struggling at this point in the season to stay above 500. It just doesn't happen that much. Don't want to compare him to Dirk, but think about the Dirk era and you think how many times before 2011 was that team struggling to make the playoffs or struggling to stay above 500 in mid-March? Just didn't ever really happen that often. So it's going to lead to a lot of contention. A lot of fans are going to be mad online, and you know what? That's okay. Fans are going to be fans should be fans. There's what is there to celebrate about this season? The Kyrie trade was great, and I think that laid the foundation. I wrote the column earlier this week. That lays the foundation for the team to, I think, go down a path that feels easier than where they were before the Kyrie trade. It's easier to find a Dorian replacement than it is to find a second star, find a player like Kyrie. So I feel like the path is better, but they kind of shot themselves in the foot this season, and they don't really have a way to recuperate from it. They lost all those games before the All-Star break they should have won. That's coming back to bite them. They could have been solidly in the 5th or 4th place if they would have won all the games they were supposed to win earlier in the season. It's just, I'm just not in a place either way. If fans want to be optimistic, I'm optimistic. I don't think the team's going to miss the playoffs. I do think that the season is kind of a wash in the sense that I'm not sure what's going to happen in the play. They're going to be without home court advantage if they make the legitimate playoffs out of the play-in, and that's going to be tough to favor them in any series, regardless of who they're playing, if they don't have home court, considering how bad home court their road record is. So the thing is that I'm just kind of sick of the bullshit in terms of we can call it how it is. It's just, this isn't a great season. I don't want to fight over that. I don't want to fight with anyone that thinks that it is a great season. Expectations are crazy or fickle thing or weird, especially after a Western Conference Finals run. I think the thing is people are going to be angry because this isn't really acceptable considering the Mavericks have Luka. So let people be angry. My thing is I'm not going to go off on anyone. I'm not going to go off on the team too hard right now, but just don't, if you see fans mad and you're in a position of influence and you think it's like not fair, or you think you're annoyed by negativity surrounding the team, I would say my best advice is you just don't tweet or don't say, just ignore it. I've ignored plenty of times when I've seen some overzealous Mavs fans, maybe talk rudely about a player or a certain situation. But right now it's like, what do you have to give? What do you have to gain from talking down to fans right now? The team is 34-34. Hopefully they pull it together in these last 14 games, but just as of right now, it's a disappointing season. So doesn't necessarily mean that there's no hope. But it's just how it is. It's just tough. I don't see the point. I just let fans be mad, let them be upset. Lord knows if I was not doing media, if this was 10 years ago, if I was in my early 20s, if I was in my late teens, if I was in high school and season was happening, I'd be ripping my hair out and going nuts. So I get it. We've all been there. We've all been that part. Before we became media people, we were just about everyone that enters this business as a media person was a fan beforehand. We've all been there. So let's just try to keep it clean to go to the end of the season. People are going to be mad. Let's not make it worse. Let's not poke the hornet's nest. I'm going to try not to. We'll see what the rest of the staff does. It's just kind of is what it is. So I'm just kind of rambling at this point. So let's get out of here. Again, Mavericks lose to the Memphis Grizzlies 112-108. The Dallas Mavericks are now in 8th place in the West. They're tied with the Minnesota Timberwolves, both teams at 34-34. The Warriors won. They are solidly now in 6th. They are 35-33. The Mavericks are a game back. The Mavericks are a half game up on the Los Angeles Lakers for 9th, a full game up on 10th, Utah Jazz, and a game and a half on the 11th place, New Orleans Pelicans and Oklahoma City Thunder. So that's where it stands. It's crunch time. Mavericks going to have to pull something out, need to get healthy, need to start stacking up on some wins before it's too late. It's almost too late. They've almost passed the point of no return here. So we'll see what happens. We'll be with you guys Monday when the Mavericks play the Memphis Grizzlies at home. My partner in crime, Kirk, should be back for then. So you're listening to Mavs Winnable After Dark. We'll talk to you guys Monday night.